This is Richie from Boston. Nobody bought my bug out bags, so I had to kill the puppies. But I digress.
Alright, look out for Charlie here. I've been thinking a lot, thinking about all the craziness going on. And it amazes me that the physical symptoms that people undergoing RF targeting, what people refer to as electronic harassment, has been completely overlooked and brushed off. And even more so because of the physical aspects, Morgellons and Morgellons victims have been totally brushed aside, pretty much laughed at by the medical community when they have real symptoms going on. That is a pandemic that's been going on for 20 years now, and it's been completely ignored. And now this has gone fucking gangbusters. It's just mind-blowing to me. Now, partially, the reason why it's blown up by the medical community is because a lot of Morgellons patients go to these doctors and tell them that things are growing out of their skin. It's coming out of my skin. And when they hear that, they immediately shut down. And that is what a lot of Morgellons people have wrong. They have a film that is practically invisible on them. And within that film, the fungal graphene film, these things will grow and get stuck in and come out. And that is why it's a misunderstanding of what people have with their own symptoms. It grows within the film, not within the skin. So there's like this fake skin on them. This stuff grows. They believe it's coming out of their skin. And like I've said in my older videos, this stuff is practically invisible in most places. On the face, a lot of times it can dry up and look like dry skin or flaky skin in spots. But for the most part, it's invisible until it gets into layers and it starts to look like alligator skin or sunburn or, whatever, microwaved hot dog, if you will. But what drives me really crazy about this is that a doctor, a really dumb doctor with a microscope, could figure out what is going on in 10 minutes. With a handheld USB microscope, in 10 minutes with one of these patients, they would realize that something isn't right. And for 20 years, this has been brushed aside, and it brings up questions. And the question is, why? Was it to lead up to something? Was somebody from upstairs telling people to ignore this for the time being so it could be used during a time like now to give people symptoms? Because we all know that what they call Morgellons is a RF antenna. And that brings up even more questions. What is going on? Why is this being ignored? And why use something that has less death than the flu, then totally ignore something like this for 20 years that has clearly been killing people itself? Not even the electronic harassment part that comes along with it. So there are many, many questions. This graphene fungus is growing everywhere. It is going crazy. It's on everything. And it is growing exponentially with the aid of global dimming. People with solar panels on their home have reported like a 75% loss of power in the last 25 years because of this global dimming from sea trails in the sky. So you could even go so far as to say that the sea trails are aiding in the growth of this fungus on everything that would die on, let's say the side of a house or on a building or wherever, on your car with normal UV light. It's growing everywhere. Like I showed in my older videos, this is on the north side of every house, been sprayed down like spray paint everywhere. And it's growing, and it's growing on people. It's growing on your things. It's not just you. It's in your house. It's on your ceiling. People have had this forever, like Walking Dead. Everybody's infected. Just do you have symptoms or not? That's a pandemic. It's an epidemic that's been going on, and it's just been completely and totally overlooked. And the evil part about it is it's been overlooked intentionally. And the question is, why? But we've got a lot more to talk about. While I'm thinking about it, if you have questions, go through my older videos. In all my recent videos for the last 6 months or so, I've put a link to my older videos in the description and in a pinned comment. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I get a lot of questions about stuff that I've already covered. And I cannot email people back with really descriptive emails explaining stuff that I've covered in my videos in depth. So go to my older videos and look through them and listen. If you don't have the time to listen to a few hours worth of videos, you're not going to be able to help yourself. You have to want to help yourself with this whole thing, whether it be the Morgellons aspect of it or getting rid of your symptoms or just trying to figure out what's going on. So go through my older videos and look. For the most part, the descriptions tell you what is pretty much in the video and explains what's going on. A couple of them are humorous and short descriptions, but for the most part, you can tell what the video is about. And I go in depth in ways that I could never do in an email. So I want to talk about David Paulides' video, or actually a documentary that he put out called Missing 411. And in that, there are a couple things. He goes into this and how these people are found, when they're found, and the circumstances in which they're found. And it's really interesting. I personally believe that they are testing out electromagnetic weapons on these people in different various aspects, in different forms. The one thing that I firmly believe is that they have developed back in the late 60s or early 70s, they developed a tracking system to find anybody living off-grid life forms. Okay? And I think what proves that is the clip or the segment in that documentary called The Sierra Sounds, where these campers, these dudes, would meet at a certain spot up in Northern California every year. And when they would, in the middle of the night, these voices would find them and start talking to them. I think it's a multi-pronged tracking system that has a audio weapon with it to scare people away. So what would happen to these people is they would hear these voices, crazy voices talking to them. And I believe these voices were version 1.0. They never saw anything, scared the shit out of them. They never saw anything. They just heard stuff. And it would get really close to them. And then one guy even said that he heard what sounded like a tuning fork up above them. So obviously, this wasn't, Bigfoot or some animals or some shit. It was an electromagnetic weapon. It was talking to them, just audio, like I said. So what I believe is this was version 1.0 of what people call V2K. This was louder. Everybody could hear it. It wasn't designed for just one person to hear. They were doing this to scare people away. I've analyzed the audio. I'm going to put out a video on that. And I am 110% certain that this is tech. It's absolutely tech. And it was designed to track people out living off grid, which if you think about it, that is absolutely something that the government would want to have. Because the forests, the desert, these areas, the woods of America, northern Michigan, for example, has woods and forests that are so big that, you could have a militia out there ready to take down the government and they wouldn't know about it. But with this tracking system, they absolutely would. But yeah, I analyzed the audio and I've slowed it down and done all kinds of stuff to it. And it is tech, and it doesn't even say what it sounds like it's saying. Like these people are trying to analyze it, and they're saying it says this or it says that, and it doesn't, because if you slow it down, reverse some of it, switch up the syllables, it's just a warped human speech. It's being warped by technology. But David Paulides talks about how many of the people that have gone missing are German. And that is very, very interesting because many people that get targeted, the white people that get targeted, are of German descent or have Germanic ancestry. Not everybody, but many of them. About the same number as the people that go missing in the woods, It is very, very interesting. It's as if somebody has a grudge against German people for some reason. In fact, David Paulides says that every physicist that's gone missing has been German. Every single one. What are the odds? So what they're doing is they get these people out in the middle of the woods somewhere by themselves, and they test these electromagnetic weapons on them. And I think what they're doing, because you can use the Sierra sounds, these campers that heard these voices and recorded them, you can use the Sierra sounds as an example. What's going on is a lot of these guys that go missing, the reason they end up going missing, and anybody that's been attacked with audio weapons before knows exactly how this would work. Let's say they're going down this trail and they have a map, and they start hearing voices talking behind them. They're going to panic. They're going to panic, and what they do is they use these voices to drive the person off course and get lost because they're panicked. Then, once they get off course, they keep driving them with these voices, herding them, if you will. They herd them like cattle where they want them to be. And then they use a harder, more hardcore electromagnetic weapon on them. Or they just get them so lost that the person ends up perishing. Or they can keep threatening, talking about how they're going to take them out if they go this way, or I'm going to shoot them if they go that way. And when you're first hit with stuff like this, you're in such a state of bewilderment that you're not going to rationally think about it because these voices are really there. So you are going to pretty much believe anything that they say. So they can pretty much do anything that they want with just these voices. And I think that explains a lot of the weird some of the missing stories where, like, one of the guys was like a stone's throw from a house and a road and perished. And you could totally and completely understand why and how if he was hearing voices threatening, saying they were going to shoot him if he walked for the house. You get what I'm saying? Or they were going to do something if he walked for the road. So he would probably believe that and then eventually perish because he thought, he thought they were real. These people think that they're real, and they don't have time when they're in a life or death situation out in the woods to figure out that they're not real because it's such a bewildering experience. Like, even one of the Sierra Sounds guys, he said that he heard a car door shut. Now, come on. They were like 20 miles. He said that they were 20 miles from anything. Anything. And if they heard a car door shut, that's clearly a human thing that's going on. So it also explains the lack of clothes. Like, on a lot of these people, they take their clothes off. And I think what's going on is most RF weapons have the capability of making the skin feel like it's burning. And they probably hit these people with this stuff so that they appear even crazier and get them to, they probably heat them up and burn their skin and get them to take their clothes off. And they're usually found with their clothes like in a pile, somewhere, or like folded up and put aside. So they can do crazy shit. I mean, imagine, you're out in the middle of nowhere, you're in a strange place, and then you're hit with these weapons. And, if you haven't been hit with these weapons of any kind, you're not going to totally get it. Those who have will totally get it. That when you're in such a state of chaos and fear, and imagine being somewhere like the woods where you're totally uncomfortable. It's not your comfort zone. You don't know where you are, even if you have a map. I mean, it's easy to drive someone where you want them to go. It's easy to do all this. And it's a great way to do it because the person's alone. Who are they going to tell? You know? So that's what I think's going on with that. Totally and completely. This is off subject a little bit, but there was a woman who was recording her bedroom as she slept, and she picked up a V2K type voice, electromagnetic voice that was talking to her, right? And she was either answering it back, or her voice was being shot back into the house. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about, go to my older videos and check out my Your House Isn't Haunted videos. Anyway, she caught this voice talking and then her voice answering it. And she put this up on Reddit, and Reddit, of all places, convinced her that somebody broke in to her house and was having a conversation with her in her sleep, and she just didn't remember it. Can you believe that shit? These people will bend over backwards to make up conspiracy theories to promote their delusions. Dude, if your doors are locked and there's no sign of a break-in and there's voices on the tape, it's not a ghost, okay? And you heard your voice talk back and you don't remember it, it's clearly voices being shot into your house for a reason. I can't believe that people can't wrap this around their fucking heads. It's mind-blowing to me. Pull your heads out of your asses. Reddit. So, going back to what I was initially talking about in the beginning, I think that Walking Dead was totally used for predictive programming. Because, you know, they've got these photos now of these Detroit hospitals where they're showing bodies stacked up, and it's just like when Rick Grimes walks out of the hospital and you've got all these, you know, bodies in sheets wrapped up. And it's like fucking crazy shit, fucking clown world. And it's really gotten to the point where I think it's quite possible that everybody has been sick with this fungal infection that is electromagnetically sensitive. Everybody that's been targeted with this stuff has had symptoms come rapid onset and rapid offset. You know, they come and go. You can have a scratch or a cut show up and then vanish, you know, 2 minutes later, 5 minutes later, you know, just nuttiness. And I think that everybody has this to some extent. And people have also mentioned a lack of sea trails in the sky as of late. And is that because they can't get up there and do it? Or is it because that the operation is coming to a close because enough people are infected with this? Who knows? But I really, really believe that this is going to be used to ramp up the symptoms and hit people with electromagnetic frequencies and either make them sick or make them appear to be sick, even though they're not sick. Because a lot of people that have had this for years feel sick, feel shitty, look shitty, and are told by their doctors that they're perfectly healthy, that their vitals are all there, even though they might feel like they're dying. So, you know, this can mimic a symptom that you might not really have. And another thing that they were talking about is one guy, they said, kept burping and burping and burping and then just died. Okay, that is a symptom of radio frequency targeting, because out of nowhere it gives people hiccups, or they will just keep burping because it's as if air is being created in their guts or being formed, gas is being formed in their guts by this stuff from heating up or whatever it is. So don't believe the hype. They're going to start creating symptoms and people are going to buy it. And since everybody has this fungal infection, if you will, who's to say that that's not what makes you test positive for what's going on? But there is a reason why they have completely ignored another epidemic, pandemic that's been going on around the world to all kinds of people, and it's been horrible for them for 20 years just so they can hype the shit out of the flu. Something's up. And if you don't see that, there's nothing I can do for you. Look out for Charlie.